In life, the difference between failure and success is not always talent, luck, or resources. Sometimes, it's something much simpler, the refusal to quit. This is the story of a boy who had every reason to give up, but instead chose to keep moving forward. His journey reminds us that persistence can turn impossible dreams into reality. Daniel was born in a quiet little town where the streets always seemed the same, and dreams were often limited by the size of your wallet. His parents worked hard, his father at a factory that never stopped running, and his mother at a diner where the coffee was always hot, but the tips were always small. Money was tight, and every decision, whether it was about groceries, clothes, or school supplies, had to be carefully measured. From a young age, Daniel could see the toll life took on his parents. His father's hands were rough and calloused, his back bent from years of heavy lifting. His mother's smile, though warm, often hid the exhaustion in her eyes. Many nights, the lights in their small home stayed on late, not because of laughter or celebration, but because his parents sat at the kitchen table, whispering about unpaid bills and overdue rent. Most kids in Daniel's neighborhood accepted this life as unchangeable. They believed the future had already been written for them. Finish high school, get a job at the same factory, live paycheck to paycheck, and repeat the cycle. Few ever thought about breaking free, because hope was a dangerous thing. It could set you up for disappointment. But Daniel was different. Deep down, he carried something he couldn't explain, a quiet fire that whispered, "There's more out there for you. You're not meant to settle." While other kids spent their afternoons hanging around convenience stores or scrolling endlessly on their phones, Daniel often found himself daydreaming about bigger things. He didn't know exactly what success looked like yet, but he knew it had to be something beyond the narrow boundaries of a small town. Still, dreaming didn't make life any easier. At school, Daniel wasn't the smartest kid in class. He struggled in math, stumbled over words during presentations, and often felt invisible among his peers. Some teachers saw him as just another student passing through, a boy with average grades and little potential. Classmates teased him for wearing hand-me-down clothes and shoes that were too worn out for sports. And yet, despite all this, Daniel held on to a stubborn belief: my circumstances are not my destiny. He repeated those words silently every time life tried to convince him otherwise. This belief would soon be tested, and Daniel would discover that holding on to a dream is easy when nothing stands in your way. But when rejection and failure come crashing down, that's when you find out who you really are. When Daniel was 12, he discovered basketball. It wasn't through a fancy gym or a professional coach. It was on a cracked concrete court at the edge of his neighborhood. The hoop leaned slightly to the left, the backboard was faded and chipped, and the net was nothing more than a few tangled strings. But to Daniel, it was more than just a court. It was a place where, for a few hours, he could forget about his family's struggles and lose himself in the rhythm of the game. He admired the players he saw on TV, giants who seemed unstoppable, men who rose from humble beginnings and became legends. Watching them, Daniel thought, if they can do it, why not me? When the school announced basketball team tryouts, Daniel felt a surge of hope. This was his chance to prove himself, to be seen as more than the poor kid, or the quiet boy in the back of the class. 4 weeks leading up to tryouts, he dribbled a worn-out ball until his hands blistered. He practiced layups against the dented garage door behind his house and shot baskets until the streetlights came on. Every swish of the ball through the net made him believe a little more. Finally, the day arrived. The gym buzzed with energy as boys lined up, some tall and confident, others nervous like Daniel. The polished floor squeaked beneath sneakers, the sound echoing through the space. Daniel's heart raced as he took his place, clutching his basketball tightly. At first, things seemed okay. He dribbled decently, ran the sprints, and tried to keep up. But then came the shooting drills. Shot after shot, Daniel's ball clanged against the rim or sailed wide. He could feel the eyes of the coach and other players on him. Every miss made his palms sweat more, his arms stiffen, his confidence sink. One boy snickered loudly, whispering to his friend, "He doesn't belong here." The words cut deep, but Daniel kept pushing, telling himself not to give up. When tryouts ended, the coach called the group together. His voice was calm but firm. "If your name's not on the list posted tomorrow morning, thank you for trying out, but we can't use you this year." The next day, Daniel ran to the bulletin board outside the gym. Names were neatly typed on the sheet of paper. He scanned the list once, twice, 3 times. His name wasn't there. His stomach dropped. For a long time, he just stood there staring, while other boys celebrated around him. Some high-fived each other, already talking about the season ahead. Daniel felt invisible, small, like all his hard work had been for nothing. Walking home, the ball tucked under his arm felt heavier than ever. Doubts crowded his mind. Maybe they're right. Maybe I'm not cut out for this. Maybe I should stop trying before I embarrass myself again. That night, he sat on the edge of his bed, fighting back tears. For the first time, the fire inside him flickered, dangerously close to going out. But deep down, a voice whispered, faint but stubborn, "This isn't the end. Not if you don't let it be." That night after the list went up, Daniel sat quietly in his room, staring at the basketball resting against the wall. Every missed shot, every laugh from the other kids replayed in his head like a cruel highlight reel. Most kids in his shoes would have walked away. Many did, but Daniel couldn't bring himself to quit. As he sat there, he remembered something his father once told him while fixing a broken chair in their kitchen. Things don't get stronger by avoiding pressure. They get stronger by facing it. Those words echoed in Daniel's mind. He realized that maybe failure wasn't the end, it was training. The next morning, while the rest of the neighborhood still slept, Daniel grabbed his basketball and walked to the court. The sky was pale with the first light of dawn, the air cool and quiet except for the rhythmic thump of the ball on the concrete. He promised himself that every day, no matter how tired, no matter the weather, he would show up. At first, it was painful. His shots still missed more than they landed, and his arms ached from repetition. But Daniel pushed through. He studied the way professionals moved, the angle of their elbows, the quick release of their shots, the patience in their dribble. He practiced free throws until his fingers were raw, sprinted back and forth until his lungs burned, and ran plays he had only seen on TV. Some days were lonely. While other kids played video games or hung out at the corner store, Daniel was alone on the cracked court, sweat dripping down his forehead, echoing footsteps his only company. He didn't see it as punishment. He saw it as preparation. Even when it rained, Daniel showed up. He slipped. He fell. He soaked his clothes, but he kept dribbling. When winter came and the cold bit at his skin, he wore 2 jackets and practiced anyway. He told himself, "If I can train in the worst conditions, nothing can stop me when conditions are good." Slowly, something changed. His misses grew fewer. His form tightened. His confidence grew. Kids who once laughed at him began to notice. Some even joined him, but none stayed as long as Daniel. He was always the last one on the court, shooting until the streetlights flickered on. What set Daniel apart wasn't natural talent. It was his decision to respond differently, to turn rejection into fuel instead of defeat. And though no one else could see it yet, Daniel knew he was building something powerful, the unshakable discipline that separates dreamers from doers. By the time the next year rolled around, Daniel wasn't the same boy who had missed shot after shot at tryouts. His body had changed. He was taller, leaner, and stronger from the countless hours of running in drills. His game had changed too. Every move felt sharper, more controlled. He could sink free throws with ease, dribble under pressure, and keep his endurance longer than most kids his age. But even with all the progress, tryout week brought back a wave of nerves. The memory of last year's failure still haunted him. Standing outside the gym doors on the first day, Daniel gripped the ball, so tightly his knuckles whitened. He whispered to himself, "This time is different. I'm ready." Inside the gym, the energy was the same as before. Squeaking sneakers, bouncing balls, boys competing to stand out. But Daniel was different. This time, he stepped onto the court with quiet confidence. When drills began, he pushed harder than anyone else. During sprints, he refused to slow down, even when his lungs begged for air. When it came time for shooting, he hit more shots than he missed. For the first time, he felt like he belonged. Still, doubt lingered. Daniel could see the coach watching closely, arms crossed, face unreadable. Every nod or shake of the head made Daniel's stomach twist. He tried not to think about it, focusing only on giving everything he had. By the end of tryouts, his shirt was soaked, his legs heavy, but his heart was filled with hope. He knew he had done better than last year. Maybe this time it would be enough. The next day, Daniel rushed to the bulletin board again. His eyes scanned the list eagerly. But once more, his name wasn't there. The disappointment hit like a punch to the chest. His shoulders slumped, and for a moment, he felt the same crushing weight of failure as before. Some boys who made the team celebrated loudly beside him, their laughter echoing in the hallway. Daniel clenched his fists, fighting the sting in his eyes. But instead of walking away, he surprised even himself. He found the coach in the gym and asked, "Coach, I've been working hard. I know I'm better than last year. Can you tell me what I'm missing?" The coach studied him for a long moment before replying. "You've improved, no doubt about it, but you're still not where we need you to be. Basketball is about more than just effort. It's about timing, awareness, teamwork. You're close, but not yet." Those words could have shattered Daniel. But instead, he nodded. "Okay, thank you. I'll see you next year." The coach raised his eyebrows, almost amused by the boy's determination. Most kids who got cut twice never came back. But Daniel wasn't most kids. Walking home, the disappointment was still heavy, but underneath it burned something stronger, a determination that nothing, not even rejection twice in a row, was going to stop him. If anything, the failure only made him hungrier. He knew now that he had to train not just harder, but smarter. And so, Daniel returned to the cracked court, ready to push himself to new limits. The comeback wasn't over, it had only just begun. Another year passed. For Daniel, it wasn't just 12 months on the calendar. It was 12 months of sweat, pain, and relentless work. He treated every day like it was training camp. While most kids his age spent summers at the pool or hanging out at the mall, Daniel lived on the court. He studied the game in ways he never had before. He borrowed old library books about basketball strategy, watched hours of footage of professional games, and even started keeping a notebook where he wrote down drills, mistakes, and goals. Each week, he gave himself challenges. Make 500 shots in a row this week, or run until you can't feel your legs. The neighborhood kids began to notice a change. They would stop by the court and watch as Daniel ran drills with the intensity of someone preparing for the NBA. Sweat dripped down his face, his shirt clung to him, and still he pushed. They whispered among themselves, "Man, this kid doesn't stop." By the time tryouts came around again, Daniel wasn't nervous, he was ready. He walked into the gym with his head high, not because he was cocky, but because he knew he had earned his spot long before stepping foot inside. The drills started the same way: sprints, ball handling, shooting, defense. But this time, Daniel was electric. His feet moved fast and precise. His shots arced beautifully through the air, dropping into the net again and again. He hustled for every rebound, defended fiercely, and didn't let a single second go to waste. The other players noticed. The same boys who had once laughed at him were now watching with quiet respect. A few even muttered, "He's different this year." The coach noticed too. His expression remained serious, but every so often, he gave a small nod as Daniel nailed another shot or outran the pack during drills. By the end of the tryout, Daniel's chest was heaving, sweat pouring down his face, but unlike the past 2 years, he wasn't filled with dread. Deep down, he knew he had left everything on that court. The next morning, Daniel stood once again at the bulletin board. His hands trembled slightly as his eyes scanned the names. Then there it was, Daniel Carter. His name was printed clearly among the chosen players. For a moment, he just stared at it, hardly believing it was real. Then the weight of years of effort, rejection, and persistence came crashing down. He smiled, not the cocky smile of victory, but the quiet, powerful smile of someone who had finally proven to himself that refusing to quit pays off. But here's the truth: making the team wasn't the real victory. The real victory was everything it took to get there: the early mornings, the lonely practices, the endless failures, and the decision to keep going when it would have been easier to stop. That was the turning point, not just in basketball, but in Daniel's life. He realized that if he could overcome this, he could overcome almost anything. Making the team was a milestone, but it didn't magically make Daniel's life easier. The struggles at home were still there, the bills piling up, his parents working long hours, the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. But something inside Daniel had shifted. He no longer looked at challenges as roadblocks. He saw them as opportunities to apply the same grit he had built on the basketball court. On the team, Daniel wasn't the star player. Not yet. He spent much of that first season on the bench, watching others take the spotlight. But instead of sulking, he treated the bench like a classroom. He studied every play, watched how teammates positioned themselves, how they communicated, how the rhythm of the game flowed. And when he did get his chance on the court, he played with a kind of hunger that couldn't be ignored. His coach began to notice. "You may not be the tallest or the fastest," the coach told him one evening, "but you're the hardest worker. That's what will take you far." Those words became fuel for Daniel, pushing him to outwork not just his opponents but his own limits. But basketball was just one piece of the puzzle. The discipline Daniel had forged through endless practice began to spill into other parts of his life. In the classroom, he stopped coasting and started applying the same persistence to his studies. Math problems that once frustrated him became challenges he refused to back down from. Essays that used to feel impossible slowly turned into opportunities to improve. His grades climbed, not because he suddenly became a genius, but because he applied the same mindset. Keep showing up, keep working, don't quit. Outside of school, Daniel took part-time jobs to help his family. Whether it was stacking shelves, cleaning floors, or washing dishes, he did the work with a determination that impressed his employers. People began to say, "That kid's different. He doesn't give up." The change didn't go unnoticed by his peers either. The same classmates who once teased him now came to him for help, whether it was with basketball, schoolwork, or advice about life. Some even asked him, "How do you keep going when everything seems stacked against you?" Daniel's answer was always simple: "Because quitting won't get me anywhere." Over time, Daniel realized that what he was building went far beyond basketball. The game had been the spark, but persistence had become his way of life. Whether it was academics, work, or personal challenges, he carried the same fire into everything he did. And though he was still just a teenager, he began to see himself differently. He wasn't just the boy who had once been cut from the team. He was becoming someone stronger, someone who could turn setbacks into stepping stones. Someone who, no matter the obstacle, refused to back down. This wasn't just about basketball anymore. It was about shaping a mindset that would carry him through every battle life had yet to throw his way. Years passed, and Daniel's story grew far beyond the basketball court. He never became a household name or a professional athlete on TV, but that didn't matter. The habits, discipline, and mindset he built chasing the game shaped every corner of his life. By the time he graduated, Daniel had earned a reputation, not as the most talented, but as the most relentless. Teachers remembered him as the kid who turned failing grades into steady improvement. Employers remembered him as the teenager who worked shifts with a level of responsibility beyond his years. Teammates remembered him as the one who never complained, never gave up, and pushed everyone else to rise higher. When college came, Daniel wasn't handed a scholarship. He had to fight for every opportunity. He walked onto the team as an underdog once again, but the story repeated itself. Long practices, quiet determination, and steady progress. Eventually, he earned his spot, not because he was destined for greatness, but because he carved it out with his persistence. Life after basketball carried the same theme. In his career, Daniel started at the bottom like everyone else, doing tasks no one else wanted. But while others quit or drifted away, Daniel stayed. He learned. He grew. Every rejection letter, every no from a boss, every closed door only fueled him to push harder. Slowly, he climbed, one step, one opportunity, one small victory at a time. But perhaps the greatest impact Daniel made wasn't in his own success. It was in the lives he touched. He never forgot the boy he once was, the kid staring at a bulletin board, heartbroken after being cut. So, as an adult, he went back to his community and began mentoring kids who reminded him of himself. He showed up at local courts, helping young players with drills, teaching them the importance of discipline, and most of all, reminding them that failure doesn't mean the end. "Listen," he would tell them, "I got cut. Twice. People laughed at me. But I came back. And so can you. The only time you really fail is when you stop trying." Those words carried weight, not because they were motivational slogans, but because they were backed by his story. Kids listened to him, not just because he was a coach, but because he had lived the struggle they were facing. Over time, dozens of young people credited Daniel with helping them change their paths, whether it was sticking with basketball, staying in school, or simply believing they had worth. Daniel had become more than just a man who once made a team. He had become a symbol of persistence, proof that ordinary people could achieve extraordinary things by refusing to quit. And when he looked back on his life, he realized something profound. The dream that started with a basketball had grown into something far bigger. His greatest victory wasn't making the team. It was becoming the kind of person who never let failure define him. Final lesson. Daniel's story isn't about basketball, it's about life. The court was just the training ground. What truly mattered was the mindset he built, a refusal to let failure define him. Too often, we look at successful people and assume they were born lucky, talented, or chosen. But the truth is far simpler. Success doesn't belong to the strongest, the smartest, or even the most gifted. It belongs to the ones who show up, again and again, long after others have quit. Daniel got cut twice. He had every excuse to walk away. But instead, he made a choice to keep going when it hurt, when it was lonely, when no one else believed in him. That choice shaped his future, and that same choice is available to you. Whatever your dream is, starting a business, finishing school, chasing a career, building a better life, it won't be easy. You will face setbacks. People will doubt you. You might even doubt yourself. But when those moments come, remember this. Failure is not final unless you quit. The boy who once stood staring at a bulletin board, crushed by rejection, became a man who inspired others, not because he never failed, but because he never stopped trying. So the lesson is clear. Your greatest power is persistence. If you refuse to quit, nothing can truly stop you. Now it's your turn. Whatever challenge you're facing, don't back down. Don't let failure be the end of your story. Stand tall, take another shot, and keep moving forward, because you never know how close you are to your breakthrough.